We are cutting the dead weight out of this family, and you are the first to go, my brother said, while my parents laughed. The only thing useful about you is your money, so I said, perfect, then start packing your things, because this is my house. My name is Mark Miller. I'm 31 years old. I work as a project manager at a construction firm, and this is the story of how I learned that the worst parasites can share your own blood. I bought my house when I was 28. It wasn't just any house, it was a beautiful 2-story property with 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a large backyard, and a pool. I work between 50 and 60 hours a week and earn $8,500 a month. An excellent salary for someone my age. But one I earned with blood, sweat, and sleepless nights finishing projects. The house was my pride, my achievement. The physical proof that all my sacrifice had been worth it. I spent 3 months decorating it exactly how I wanted. The master bedroom was spacious, with a private bathroom, a walk-in closet, and a balcony overlooking the garden. It was my personal sanctuary. I left the other 3 rooms as guest rooms, thinking that eventually I would start a family and fill them with children. But for now, it was just me, enjoying my space, my freedom, and my success, until my parents showed up at my door. My father, Bob, was 58 and had been a mechanic all his life. And my mother, Alice, 56, had worked as a seamstress. Both had retired early at 55, claiming health problems that were never very specific nor backed up by doctors. My younger brother, Brad, was 26 and had never held a job for more than 6 months because he always had excuses. The boss was unfair, his coworkers were jealous, or the work was beneath his potential. But the reality was that Brad was a slacker who lived with my parents without contributing absolutely anything. One Saturday afternoon, the 3 of them arrived at my house without warning. "Mark, we need to talk," my father said seriously. "What's going on?" I asked, letting them into the living room. "They are raising our rent," my mother explained. "From $1,100 to $1,600. And we can't pay that with our pensions." "That's too much," I said. "And what about Brad?" I asked, looking at my brother who was lying on my sofa looking at his phone. "Can he get a job and help?" "I'm looking," Brad muttered without looking up. "But there's nothing good available." "Brad is waiting for the right opportunity," my mother defended. "He can't accept just any mediocre job." "So, what are you going to do?" I asked. My father and mother exchanged looks. "We thought, well, you have this huge house, 4 bedrooms, and you live alone, so maybe we could stay here just temporarily while we find something cheaper." I should have said no. All the alarms in my head were screaming at me to say no, but it was my family, and the conditioning that family helps family was too deeply ingrained. "Okay," I said finally, "but it is temporary. 6 months maximum while you look for another place." Of course, my father promised just 6 months. They moved in a week later. I gave them 2 of the guest rooms, one for my parents and another for Brad, and I left the 4th room as a backup office. "This house is incredible," Brad said, looking at the pool. "Mark, you are lucky to have all this." "It's not luck," I corrected him. "It's hard work." I established some basic rules. Clean up after using the kitchen. Respect private spaces. And contribute to household chores. And everyone nodded in agreement. The first 2 weeks were tolerable, but then the problems started. I would leave for work at 7 a.m. and return at 7 p.m., sometimes later. I worked hard, managed projects worth thousands of dollars, dealt with difficult contractors, and constantly solved problems. While meanwhile, in my house, my family lived like they were at a vacation resort. I would come home and find them in the pool, sunbathing, swimming, and laughing. The kitchen was a mess, with dirty dishes piled up, and the living room had bags of junk food scattered around. "You guys could clean up after eating," I asked, after the 2nd week of this. "We're relaxing," Brad said. "You can do it later, right? You get home early from work anyway." "I get home at 7 p.m., I said. "That is not early." "Compared to people who work until midnight." "Yes, it is," my father said. "Don't exaggerate, Mark." I started to realize that I never saw any of them clean. They never cooked. They ordered takeout with my credit card, which they borrowed without permission. They never did their laundry but used my washer and dryer, leaving damp clothes in there for days. And they spent money, God. How they spent. My electric bill, which was normally $180, went up to $420 because the pool pump was on all day, the air conditioning was set to a constant 65 degrees, and all the lights were on. The water bill went from $90 to $210 due to long showers, the pool being filled weekly, and the garden being watered excessively. Before, I spent $400 a month on groceries. But now I was spending $1,100. And that didn't count the countless times they used my card to order delivery. "You guys could contribute to some expenses," I asked after the first month as the bills tripled. "We don't have extra money," my father said. "Our pension barely covers the basics." "Brad," I asked, "have you looked for work?" "I'm waiting for answers from some applications," he said vaguely, without taking his eyes off the TV where he was playing video games. And the worst part was the comments started. "Mark spends all day working," my mother said one night during dinner. "He's never home, he never enjoys life. What's the point of having money if you never have time to spend it?" "Exactly," my father agreed. "We know how to live. Look at us, enjoying every day, relaxed, happy. That is real life, not locking yourself in an office like a corporate slave." "I work to pay for this house," I said defensively. "To pay the bills. And to support you guys too, apparently." "Oh, you're always so dramatic," Brad said mockingly, as if maintaining a house was the end of the world. "Relax, brother, enjoy life a little like us." "You guys can enjoy life because I pay for everything," I pointed out. feeling the frustration grow. You are so resentful, my mother said, shaking her head. You've always been like this, bitter. That's why you don't have a girlfriend, you know. Nobody wants to be with someone so obsessed with work and money. Her words hurt more than I wanted to admit because they were right about something. I had no social life, all my time went to work, and now to supporting 3 perfectly capable adults who refused to do anything productive. The 6 temporary months passed, then turned into 8 months, then 10, then a year. When are you going to find your own place? I asked in month 11. Why? My father asked. We are comfortable here, and you have plenty of room, so what is the problem? The problem is that this was supposed to be temporary, I said. Family helps family, Mark, my mother said. You shouldn't be keeping score of how long we've been here, that's ugly. I felt trapped, guilty for wanting my space back, and resentful for being the only one working while they lived like kings on my money, but the worst was yet to come. It was a Friday, after a particularly brutal week at work where I had slept an average of 4 hours a night managing one crisis after another on a major project. I was exhausted, physically and mentally drained, and I got home at 9 p.m., later than usual. All I wanted was to shower and collapse into my bed. I walked up the stairs to my master bedroom, opened the door, and froze. My room was completely different. My furniture had been replaced by my parents' furniture, my bed had been swapped for their king-size bed, and my clothes were no longer in the walk-in closet. What the hell? I murmured. Completely confused. I went out into the hall and went to one of the guest rooms, the one that used to be my parents'. Opened the door, and found all my belongings packed into boxes, my clothes, my books, my personal items, everything shoved carelessly into about 15 boxes. I went down the stairs, my exhaustion replaced by adrenaline and rage, and found my parents in the living room watching TV like nothing had happened. What did you do with my room? I asked, my voice tense. Oh yes, my father said without turning around. We decided we needed the master bedroom. It's bigger, has a better bathroom, and we are 2 people, so it makes more sense for us to have it. What? I said, sure, I had heard wrong. You moved all my stuff without asking me? Mark, don't be childish, my mother said. It's just a room. It is my room in my house, I exploded. You can't just take my things and move them without my permission. God, how dramatic, Brad said, coming down the stairs, apparently having heard the shouting. Brother, it's just a room, relax. It is not just a room, I said, feeling the rage bubbling up. It is my room and my house that I bought. Technically, Brad said with an arrogant smile, but family shares, right? And frankly, brother, we've been talking, and we've reached a conclusion. Something in his tone put me on alert. What conclusion? Brad looked at our parents, who nodded, then looked at me with an expression I can only describe as pure contempt. We are cutting the dead weight out of the family, he said slowly, savoring every word. And you are the first one. The silence that followed was absolute. I stood paralyzed, processing what I had just heard. What? I managed to say finally. You heard me, Brad continued, clearly enjoying this. We decided that you don't contribute anything of real value to this family. All you do is work, work, work. You are never present. You never spend time with us. You are boring. Obsessed with work. With no social life or friends. The only thing useful is your money, my father added with a cruel laugh. My parents laughed. They really laughed, as if this were a hilarious joke. Exactly, my mother agreed, smiling. You contribute money, which is useful, we won't lie, but as a person, as a son, as a brother, you are basically useless. All you do is complain about the bills, about cleaning, about working. It is exhausting being around you. So we decided it's time for you to go, Brad said, crossing his arms. We already packed your things. You can take them today. Find an apartment or something, and we will stay here where we belong. I stood staring at them, unable to fully process what I was hearing. My own family, my own blood was kicking me out of my own house, and they were laughing. Something inside me snapped, not from sadness, but from absolute clarity. All the rage, resentment, and frustration of the last few months crystallized into a moment of perfect calm. Perfect, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Perfect, Brad repeated, clearly expecting more resistance. Yes, perfect, I said, looking at each of them directly. First of all, start collecting and packing your things, because this is my house. It is in my name. I pay the mortgage. I pay all the bills. And you are nothing more than guests that I have just decided to evict. Brad's smile disappeared and my parents went pale. Second, I continued, pulling out my phone. I am cutting off all the money I gave you monthly for your expenses. The $2,000 I transferred to you like an idiot every month is over, and I am freezing all the automatic payments I set up for you. Mark. My father started, standing up. I haven't finished, I said with a voice of steel. Third, you have exactly 1 hour to pack your essentials and get the hell out of my house. You can come back tomorrow for the rest with police supervision, but tonight, you are leaving, all 3 of you. You can't do that, my mother screamed. We are your family. We raised you. This house belongs to us as partial payment for everything we did for you. I laughed, a bitter laugh without humor. Partial payment? For raising me? That is what you think? That I owe you this house for doing the basic job of parents that you chose to be when you decided to have me? Ungrateful. My father spat. After everything we sacrificed for you. I have given you $24,000 in the last year, I said, my voice rising, plus another $15,000 in food, utilities, and all the expenses that tripled since you arrived. That is $39,000 in 1 year for 3 completely capable adults who chose not to work and live like parasites off my effort. We are not parasites, Brad shouted. This situation benefits us all. Benefits all? I roared. How does it benefit me to have 3 leeches living in my house, spending my money, disrespecting my space, and now trying to steal my own house from me? Tell me how that benefits me. It was all a joke, my mother said quickly, seeing that everything had spun out of control, her tone changing to pleading. The kicking you out part? It was just a joke. We weren't serious. A joke, I repeated. Packing all my things without permission was a joke? Stealing my master bedroom was a joke? Telling me I am useless was a joke? We were just playing, Brad insisted, but his confidence had vanished. Come on, brother, don't take it so seriously. You have 59 minutes, I said, looking at my watch. I suggest you start packing. Mark, please, my father begged. We have nowhere to go. We don't have money for a hotel. Don't be cruel. Cruel? I asked. I am cruel? You guys tried to steal my house and called me useless, and I am the cruel one? You have no heart, my mother said with tears. Putting your own family on the street. That is what you want? What I want, I said firmly, is my house back. My life back. My dignity back. Now you have 57 minutes. No one moved. They stood there looking at me with a mix of shock, fear, and what seemed to be the slow realization that I was completely serious. You don't believe me? I asked. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. No! My father yelled. Wait! 911! What is your emergency? I heard the operator's voice. Yes, I need officers at my address, I said calmly. I have people in my property who refuse to leave, and I need help to remove them. Mark, no! My mother pleaded. I gave the address to the operator. Yes, there are 3 people. No, they haven't been violent yet, but they refuse to leave my private property. Yes, I will be waiting, thank you. I hung up and looked at the 3 of them. The officers are on their way. You have until they arrive to decide if you want to walk out on your own or if you prefer to be escorted out. Your choice. For the first time, I saw real fear in their eyes. Son, please, my father said, his voice cracking. Don't do this. We are family. Family doesn't try to steal your house, I said coldly. Family doesn't live like parasites off your work. You stopped being my family the moment you decided I was disposable. Finally, they started to move. They rushed up the stairs, pulling clothes out of drawers, shoving things into suitcases. I heard them arguing upstairs, blaming each other, in panic. 15 minutes later, I heard sirens outside. 2 patrol cars parked in front of my house, and I went out to meet them, showing them the deed to the house and explaining the situation. The officers were professional and understanding. Do you want to press charges? One of the officers asked. I just want them gone, I said, tired. The officers went inside. My parents and Brad came down with half-packed suitcases, their faces a mix of humiliation and rage. Sir, ma'am, young man, said one of the officers, the property owner has requested that you leave the premises. You can take your personal belongings now and coordinate to pick up the rest at another time, but you need to leave tonight. Officer, we are his family, my father tried to argue. He can't just kick us out like this. Legally, yes, he can, the officer said firmly. This is his private property. If you are not owners nor have a lease agreement, he has every right to ask you to leave. You can do it voluntarily now, or we can escort you. Your decision. They left. With 3 suitcases full of rage, humiliation, and resentment, but they left. Before walking out, Brad turned around. You are going to regret this, he said with venom. Someday you are going to be alone and need family, and we won't be there. That is the idea, I replied. I closed the door behind them and heard the police cars leave. The silence that followed was the most beautiful sound I had heard in months. The next few days were a whirlwind of changes. I changed all the locks, canceled the additional credit cards I had given them, froze all automatic transfers, and changed the passwords to all my bank accounts and streaming services. I received 47 calls from my mother in the first 3 days, 32 from my father and 18 from Brad. I blocked all their numbers. 3 weeks later, my Aunt Helen called me. Mark, what happened? Your mother called me crying. I told her the whole story, unedited, without softening at everything. My God, she said when I finished. I had no idea it had been like that. Your mother told it very differently. I'm sure, I said. Do you know where they are? She asked. No, I admitted, and honestly, I don't care. Brad left, my aunt informed me. As soon as they were kicked out, he went to another city and left your parents completely alone. The irony was perfect. The son they defended, who they never criticized, who was so valuable, abandoned them immediately when things got tough. And my parents? I asked, feeling a pinch of curiosity despite everything. They had to rent a room in a shared house, my aunt said, and they both got jobs. Your father is at a hardware store, your mother at a laundromat. They are working full-time to pay for rent and food. Working, both of them. For the first time in years, facing the reality that money doesn't appear magically, that someone has to work to cover the bills. Do you feel bad? My aunt asked. No, I said honestly. I feel relief. Relief that they are finally experiencing the consequences of their actions. Relief that they are no longer my problem. Today, 2 months after that night that changed everything, I live alone in my house, Every morning I wake up in my room, in my bed, surrounded by my things where I left them. The bills return to normal. Electricity is at $190, water at $95, food at $420, and my bank account is growing again. I have peace, silence when I want it, order in my space, and the freedom to live in my own home without feeling like a guest, or, worse, like an ATM. Do I miss my family? Not really. Do I miss the idea of having a family? Sometimes. But but I learned something important. The family you are born into isn't always the family you deserve. Sometimes, the best family is the one you build yourself, from loyal friends, from people who value you for who you are, not for what you can give them. My house is mine again, my life is mine again, and I, finally, am free, and that freedom, it turns out, is priceless.